Alright YouTube, this is Carson's XDM45 doing my first part of the video on bullet casting, and just wanted to do some videos. I've watched many of the videos on YouTube about bullet casting, learned an awful lot, but there are a few things I wish someone would have pointed out. Would have saved me some trouble down the road there. Just want to start off here with just the equipment, a basic setup that I have here. Not a whole lot of space needed to cast your bullets. Good chair to sit in, a little workbench. My equipment, got a 20-pound bottom pouring pot from Lee, and pour it out through the bottom there. So that comes in real handy. If you look at my little muffins stacked up inside there, if you watch my video on making my ingots, then that's what happens. You put the ingots in the pot, they'll cook on down there, and they're going to make some really nice bullets here in just a few minutes. On my pot, just a couple things I want to show you. One thing really, if you'll notice over here, you'll notice the little, it's where you put your mold underneath the pour spout. And I've kind of taken this little edge right here and rounded that off so it's not wearing into the side of my mold. Stainless steel spoon, bought it at Walmart for a couple bucks. Metal pan, really it's just an old hubcap that I found somewhere. A few other things, small hammer. Some of you guys will be looking at that saying, that's a metal hammer. Yeah, it is. That's what I had lying around. I don't hit the mold with it. I'll show you a little bit later on what I do with it. Don't panic. An old candle. Some A-locks, I guess that's what you call it. A little wrench to help keep the nuts and so forth on the mold itself. Keep those snugged up. Alright. When we go to clean the lead, if you'll notice the little shims here, my video where I made the ingots, I cleaned the lead, cleaned it pretty good, but when this all melts down, I'm going to clean it one more time. And the easiest way for me to do that is with these little shims. They're just wood shims that I got. I had some extra ones from a project. They work really well. You can use that to scrape the sides, scrape everything down on the sides and get all that stuff out of there. You got to be careful about, somebody said on the internet about using the paint stirrers like you get at the store from Walmart or Lowe's or whatever. You got to be careful because those got a coating, a varnish, shellac, whatever you want to call it, and I've used those before, and they'll burn up on you. They'll ignite, catch fire, and they don't last very long. Just a piece of a candle here. We'll use that to help lube this mold. A little screwdriver, just need that every once in a while. If you look on this mold, there's a screw that you can actually spin. You can spin that screw and it'll help clean out the spout down there at the bottom. That's about it. Let's see, I got a place to sit, safety glasses, good pair of gloves, bucket of water. After I drop these bullets, I'm going to quench them, and they're real hard. If you remember from my video on the ingots, this lead is basically wheel weight lead. It's already got enough tin and so forth in it. It produces some really good bullets. Let me get to the most important part of your bullet casting, and that is going to be your mold. Okay, so I've got me an assistant, real good looking assistant here. She's going to, let me hand this camera off to her. Alright. Hand that off to her. This is my, this mold here. Got this from Lyman. That's a 6-cavity mold. And probably the most important thing that you're going to have to need. And you really need to take care of this thing. Now, if you'll notice, if you look on here, first thing I did, you order a mold and the handles don't come with it. You have to buy the handles extra. Kind of dumb, but that's the way it is. And if you'll notice, what I did is I went through and I permanently attached these handles. The reason is the very first time I did this, I just had the handles shoved up on there snug, and I went to drop some bullets in the water, and the whole thing fell out. The mold and everything went down in the water, and what happened was it actually warped the mold. It warped this. This mold is made out of aluminum, and it warped it. It didn't seem like it did at first, but the longer I used the mold, and every time it got hot and then cooled off, and hot and cooled off, over time it got harder and harder for me to be able to bring this mold together and put those two blocks together where you could get some good bullets. And so I attached the handles here, just some little screws and nuts and so forth. Put the handles on the mold. That way you got a hold of it. Okay. A couple things about your mold, especially when you're fixing to tap your bullets out. Again, I've heard many guys on YouTube, but this is so true. You don't hit the mold. When you go to tap the bullets out, I'm always hitting this nut right here, and with my little metal hammer here, works really good. You don't want to mess up your mold. Okay. Several things that I didn't learn on a lot of these videos on YouTube is how to take care of your mold. Okay. Now the last time, what I do now is each time when I'm finished casting, I'll take the mold, because what will happen is, if you can see this or not, what will happen is you'll get lead that will accumulate right here at the bottom. So you'll get them at different places, and you'll have the lead will accumulate the hole right here. It'll accumulate down here just a little bit over time. What happens is, as you're going along, the mold won't close like it should. Well, what I do is, when I'm done casting for that session while the mold is still hot, I'll take my wax, and because lead doesn't like wax, and I'll take that lead and I'll work it down in there, and then take a soft metal brush. I got a small little metal brush there, and you can scrape that mold, that lead right off of there. You can get it off that mold. Okay. Now what happened was, before I started the video, I had to go ahead and prep this mold. What I did is I used some solvent, and cleaned everything off of there, because you want to get all this wax residue off of your mold. I cleaned it off there with some brake cleaner, some solvent, so forth, scrubbed it off pretty good. Then took it in the kitchen and hot soapy water, scrubbed it down real good. Used my air hose, blew it out, and made sure it was dry and so forth. And then went ahead and smoked the mold one more time to make sure the bullets will drop out. You say, why do you go through all that trouble? Because if you get this wax in here, if you'll get this wax, and you're going to have to use this wax to lubricate this this pin or this bolt, whatever you want to call it, where the arm is, you're going to have to lubricate that so it'll swing real easy. And I made the mistake of lubricating it, just putting some wax on there, and the wax run down into the mold. What happens is you end up with crinkly bullets. The wax goes in there, and then when the lead gets in there, the bullets don't look good. They'll shoot, but they just don't look good. And so whenever you lubricate this thing, I always turn it down. If you can see that, I'll always turn it down when it's hot, and I'll just touch the top of this nut right here and make sure that that's lubed properly. You've got to do that. You've got to do that, because when this aluminum gets hot, when it gets real hot, it's very soft, and real easy you can scar it. As you can see, I've had a little bit of scarring right there, trying to just avoid that. You want to make sure these nuts, that's what the little wrench is for. You want to make sure that the nuts are just snug. Okay, we're not talking you don't have to put them on with a torque wrench or whatever. Just make sure these nuts are snug. Make sure these screws back here are just snugged up and everything. And you want to be able to take care of your mold, because that's your baby right there. That's your baby right there. Get all that lead off of there. Get it cleaned up really good. You want to make sure, one thing that I would advise against is using maybe a Dremel or some sandpaper or something, and you get lead in there, and then you try to take that sandpaper, you try to smooth it out. And what you're doing is you're messing up the face of this mold here. over time you're going to have problems with it. Some of the guys they'll close it up and they'll use a Dremel and they'll put a felt pad in here with some polishing compound and they'll polish these things out. And my experience, maybe I'm doing it wrong, I don't know, but my experience is when I've done that, you'll round off these edges right here, and when your bullets come out, they'll have fins on them. You'll have some excess on there, and you don't want that. So leave the face of this as intact as possible. Again, when it's hot, you're finished with your bullet casting. Use the wax, put the wax on there, and get that lead off there. It'll come right off. It's really easy. It'll come right off, and then before you go to do it the next time, clean your mold and smoke it and get it ready to go. And so that's about it. We're gonna get this thing hot, and as you can tell, if you can look over here, my lead's melting down. It's starting to fall down in there, and so we're gonna be. I'm gonna stop the video here in just a second. We're gonna start up another video where I'm actually starting to cast and heating up the mold and give you some advice on how to keep from breaking this little handle right here. So until then,